All right, ladies and gentlemen, back in the saddle again. Today, we are going to be forcing autopilot to do something that it is currently not supposed to do, which is U-turns. And I don't mean reaching a dead end of the street or some sharp corner, I mean proper U-turns through an intersection. Some of you may remember the very last clip of my FSD Beta 8 video where autopilot attempted a U-turn and actually completed it. I mentioned in that video I thought it was probably a fluke because autopilot always avoids U-turns in the navigation routes, but I thought it'd be worth a try to go back to that same intersection and try to replicate what I did on that day. Huge shout out to those of you supporting my channel through Patreon. I've done even more equipment upgrades, including an upgraded microphone I'm talking into right now, and also upgraded binaural microphones for the inside of the car. Thank you guys so much for supporting content like this and making it all possible. I also wanted to thank everybody who's been giving me the excellent suggestions on how I can keep making my content better. And if you have any ideas or feedback, please comment below. I do read them all. Okay, so far so good. It looks like we still have the U-turn in the navigation route, so it looks like we're gonna get an attempt. Let's see what happens. Autopilot swinging out extremely wide to make this corner. Yeah, you could hear the guy behind us is also not too happy about that maneuver. It wasn't, I mean, it was successful. I didn't have to disengage or anything, but obviously swinging out way too wide there to make the corner and upsetting the driver behind me. The takeaway I had from the first clip was obviously it swung way too wide. It didn't need to swing that wide to do the U-turn, but it actually knows that it has to like kind of go wider to make the maneuver, which I thought was pretty impressive, although obviously it didn't have to go that wide. This time, autopilot does not swing as wide as it did before, but then kind of gets nervous towards the end of this turn. And you heard it, 2 for 2, we got honked at again. So far, both times through this intersection, we've been honked at. So obviously not too great so far, but I want to remind you that autopilot currently does not support a maneuver like this. It's kind of like a glitch in the Matrix, so this is all forced. You can see as autopilot comes to a stop here, it's starting to turn the steering wheel to the right, anticipating the swing maneuver. I wish it didn't do this. I think once U-turns are officially supported, stuff like this should not happen. Feeling nice and confident through the first part of this maneuver, but extra slow and cautious in the second part. So traffic behind us is already starting to move. Autopilot's still doing its little dance in the intersection, so still too slow, and it also seems to have trouble picking a lane after. So same thing as before, autopilot's anticipating the swing a bit too early. Autopilot actually choosing a little bit tighter of a path this time, although still extremely slow. So I think this was probably a better path through the U-turn. Also has real difficulty choosing a lane right here. I almost had to take over, but didn't have to. Was ready though. Autopilot coming to a very nice stop at the intersection this time with no steering wheel oddity. Also, while we're stopped here, I wanted to show you something interesting on the visualizations. I think that honk was for somebody else, thank goodness. You can see it seems to be switching back and forth very quickly on the type of maneuver it wants to do. One is a wide path, and one is a very narrow one. It almost seems like two neural networks fighting each other to figure out which is the best place to go. And honestly, that's how it's been feeling through the intersections as well. Seems like it can't make its mind up. So unfortunately, I did have to override the accelerator on this one just a little bit because the gentleman behind me was not happy with how long this maneuver was taking. It was giving me absolutely zero room. So if autopilot panic braked right there, I would have been rear-ended. Autopilot getting off to a pretty slow start this time for some reason. Also, a lot of people honking today. That one I don't think was for us either. But yeah, still, as you can see, this one was another very, very slow one. Also has a real problem with choosing which lane to be in. I think there's something to... It may have something to do with that parked car off to the side there. I'm not really sure, though. Autopilot has great speed at the start of this and then brakes at the very end. So I think this was probably one of the better attempts for the actual turn. Then obviously has some real difficulty choosing the lane like we've seen before. Alright, a lot going on this clip. So we have a couple people getting out of the car behind us, I think to go check out that car off to the side of the road. Autopilot proceeding through the intersection, and somebody pulls out in front of us. Autopilot does a great job maintaining speed and doesn't get too freaked out by this. It also gives the pedestrian a lot of room. You can see it hugging the left of the lane there to give him plenty of room. So overall, I think this was pretty good. As you could probably tell, going to be getting through these clips a little bit faster right now, because I did do a lot of attempts. Autopilot feeling extra slow on this one. Slow into the intersection, slow in the intersection. Does kind of make it up at the end though. The last part of the corner was fairly good, but it does have trouble choosing a lane like we've seen before, and I took over in case this gentleman behind us wanted to accelerate quicker, which I thought he was. So, although slow at the beginning, I actually think this was one of the better maneuvers Autopilot did as far as the path. I'm actually pretty impressed with the behavior so far, with nothing built in. Like, obviously this isn't human by a long stretch of the imagination, but man, I think it's actually doing pretty good. And I know a lot of you might be thinking, is this guy serious? Like, with everything we just saw, he thinks it's doing pretty good. But I think it's doing fairly well for attempting a maneuver that it's not designed to do. Like, in that aspect, like, I don't think there's any logic. It's just going off what it knows about turns and attempting this U-turn. So I think it's pretty cool. Autopilot not doing my last statement any favors by braking extremely hard coming into this intersection. It also, again, has some trouble picking a lane, and since the traffic was approaching from behind, I decided just to take over. The guy behind us is not dealing with autopilot shenanigans and does a U-turn behind us. I took over for sheer embarrassment on this one. So as we're stopped, Autopilot turning the steering wheel to the right very slowly. Not sure why, I just thought I'd point that out. I think Autopilot would actually do a pretty good job of these corners if it just didn't brake so hard at the very end of the maneuver. And also, obviously, knowing which lane to be in after the U-turn. Wow. The best attempt we have had so far by a mile. Great job here. No awkward braking. Fantastic. I wish this happened every time. And another surprisingly good one, with no awkward braking. I know I got a lot of flack for saying this in one of my last videos, but does anybody else feel like Autopilot's getting better and better at this? And on the very last attempt of the day, we caught the stoplight right where it was about to turn red. So, I mean, it was probably capable of making it through here. It was legal, but I did not want to make traffic that had the green light wait for autopilot to do its little dance through the intersection. Please don't forget to subscribe and give the video a like if you liked it. And I also wanted to mention, for those of you wanting more AI driver content, that I have a second channel called A1 Driver, which I will leave a link to in the description. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.